My name is Ty Devereaux of SLW Publishing. If you want more of my long form thinking, you can find my writing at tydevereaux.substack.com. And if you're interested in narrative explorations of power and survival, you can find my Survivor Series books on Amazon, link in the description. Today I want to talk about something deeper than Donald Trump. Not because Donald Trump is unimportant, but because focusing only on Trump misses the structure. The common question people ask is, why do Trump's scandals not result in lasting consequences? But that question assumes accountability is the norm. It assumes that consequences are evenly distributed, and that assumption is the real mistake. What if Trump's endurance is not a glitch in the system? What if it is evidence that the system is operating exactly as designed? This is not about ideology. It is not about Democrat versus Republican. It's about hierarchy. Specifically, I'm going to argue that what we call white supremacy is not primarily a belief system, it is a system of distributed advantage. And to understand that, we have to first examine the question we're asking in the wrong way. Let's start there. As I said, the problem begins with the question itself. The wrong question is, why does Trump not face consequences? The better question is, who historically has been considered worthy of consequences and who is not? When we look at American history honestly, we see a consistent pattern. Accountability is not neutral, it is allocated, it is administered, it's filtered, and it follows hierarchy. When someone sits within the protected layer of hierarchy, deviation is interpreted as excess. When someone sits outside, deviation is interpreted as danger. Trump's political survival becomes easier to understand once we stop treating him as an aberration. He is not an anomaly, he is an example. And examples tell us more about systems than scandals ever could. Now, to see the system clearly, we need to define it properly. To define it properly, we have to move away from emotion. White supremacy is often discussed as an extremist ideology, but structurally it functions as something else. It is a system that distributes benefits, it distributes presumed innocence, second chances, elastic enforcement. It presumes institutional patience, and it does so unevenly. Agreement is not required to benefit from the structure. You can oppose the system rhetorically and still be shielded by it materially. That is why the debate becomes confused and it continues. People are searching for villains when they should be examining defaults, the default settings of accountability, the default settings of grace. To see these defaults clearly, we need to look at one of the most concrete arenas where they operate, the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system reveals structure beneath ideology. The disparity is not only in convictions, it is in what follows. For white defendants, across class lines, charges are more likely to be reduced. Records are more likely to be sealed. Probation is more likely to replace incarceration. Errors are more likely to be survivable. For non white defendants, penalties are more likely to compound. This is not always dramatic, but it is patterned. And patterns reveal structure. Presidential pardons function as elite expungement. They demonstrate that accountability can be negotiable. What changes is not the mechanism. What changes is who has access to it. Once you see that pattern, Trump's resilience becomes less mysterious. But the structure goes beyond criminal justice. It extends into how inclusion itself operates. And that is where we turn next. We are told that civil rights represent linear progress, but a more accurate description is conditional adaptation. Inclusion expands when it stabilizes the system, when it improves legitimacy, when it absorbs dissent. But when inclusion threatens hierarchy, it becomes revocable. Trump's presidency did not require spectacle, it required a procedure. Agency memos, judicial appointments, administrative discretion. Rights were not violently erased all the time, but they were always narrowed. Democracy did not prevent this because democracy can operate selectively. Hierarchy does not need dictatorship, it needs discretion. And this is not unique to the United States. If we zoom out globally, the pattern becomes even clearer. In India, the caste system has survived monarchy, colonialism, democracy, and capitalism because caste is not a political system, it is an hierarchy. In South Africa, apartheid was formalized through law, and its economic afterlife continues beyond its official end. In France, racial inequality persists under universalistic rhetoric. Different systems, same structural logic, hierarchy embeds itself in institutions. It shapes enforcement. It defines legitimacy. Trump is not globally exceptional. He is locally specific evidence of a broader pattern, which brings us to a more uncomfortable realization. Trump may not simply be tolerated, he may be useful. Trump absorbs outrage. He revels and concentrates on spectacle. He allows institutions to externalize blame. He makes moderation appear virtuous by contrast. This does not require a conspiracy. What it requires is structural alignment. When transgression becomes theatrical, accountability becomes performative. The system remains intact. Remove the personality, and the hierarchy persists. That is why focusing only on Trump creates the illusion of reform. The architecture beneath him remains untouched. And that leads to the final question: what would it actually take to disrupt an hierarchy like this? What should be very apparent by this point is that systems do not collapse because of scandal or even war. They collapse when inequality becomes intolerable across positional lines, when people refuse injustice even when it does not target them personally. Until that point, hierarchy adapts. It absorbs reform. It delays reckoning. Trump is not the ultimate test. The system has already passed that test. The deeper question is whether we are willing to confront hierarchy itself, not emotionally, not tribally, but structurally. And that conversation, uncomfortable as it may be, is the only one that matters. I'd like to thank you for watching today. And if you would, please leave a comment or join us at tydevereaux.substack.com for further invocation into these and other matters that affect you. Thank you.